All righty.
Hello, everyone. Hello. Okay. Good evening. I'm Kathy Shapiro from Temple Bethel, and we'd like to give a special thank you to our bereavement support partner, O'Connor Mortuary, for sponsoring Dr. Hoy's workshop tonight. I would also like to recognize and thank another key partner, Vitas Healthcare. Both of these organizations have made it possible with their generosity over the years to provide invaluable community-wide grief support for the bereaved and caretakers alike for all of South Orange County. And now I'm going to introduce the presenter. Okay. With more than 35 years of care for the dying and the bereaved, Dr. William G. Bill Hoy is a clinical professor and associate director of medical humanities at Baylor University. He is widely regarded as an authority on the role of social support in death, dying, and grief, and his experience includes more than 20 years leading bereavement and pastoral care programs in hospice care. Though primarily a bedside clinician, Dr. Hoy has authored more than 200 articles and book chapters, as well as 6 books. His books in print include Do Funerals Matter? The Purposes and Practices of Death Rituals in Global Perspective, as well as others. Okay, he is presently at work on a new volume to be published in early 2024, tentatively entitled Finding Meaning in Funerals, Make Sense of Loss Through Death Ceremonies. In addition to his role with students at Baylor, he is a frequent presenter among groups of professional colleagues in healthcare across the United States and Canada. Let's all welcome Dr. Bill Hoy.
Well, thank you, Kathy, and thank you for coming tonight. We're so excited to spend a little time with all of you. 7 is a pretty good number, isn't it? It's shared in not only faith communities, across faith communities, but, if you're going to Vegas, 7's a good number to have in your plan, right? So I thought for tonight that what I would like to do is offer to you 7 ideas. Fair enough? That way you can keep track. If we get to point 4, you realize, wow, it's 8:30 and he's only on point 4. We're going to be here a while, right? So, or you can look at your watch and say, wow, look at this, it's 7:25 and he's on point 6. We're going to go home early, right? So you see, there are lots of benefits to knowing things by number. But the 7 ideas that I'd like to offer to you tonight are 7 very kind of practical touch points when life goes south for people we care about, or even people we don't care about, but who somehow or another end up in our orbit because they're a member of our congregation or a small group or our friendship circle, or it's a neighbor or something like that. And so I have been, I realized, I counted it up, so March began my 39th year of taking care of dying and bereaved people. I started when I was 3, and I've been at it a little while. And what I've realized is that probably and I don't think it's almost I think it is hands down the number one question that I entertain from friends of grieving people, friends of dying people, friends of sick people, friends of anybody just about facing crisis in their life is, what do I do? How do I help? What do I say? Right? And so That's kind of what we're going to talk about tonight. And I plan for this to be conversational, although every time I say that, I'm the only one conversing. So I'm going to make you hold me to it. So several times during the evening, I'm going to stop and say, so what do you think about that? And I'll do just exactly like I do with my pre-med students at Baylor. If nobody says anything, I'll say, so Raj, what do you think about that? Or, so Chip, what do you think about that? Or Steve, what do you think about that? So pity you if I happen to know your name, right? So, but that's kind of what we're going to do tonight is to walk through some ideas. Becky and Paulette and the wonderful folks at O'Connor printed this really nice little handout for you, and it's the roadmap. They're not numbered, but you can go through and put a little number by the bold-faced ones, then you'll know which one I'm on. But there's 7 kind of ideas. I think there's 7, if I counted correctly. There could be 6, or maybe there are 8, but anyway. Here's the first one, is above all else, be present. Be present when? Well, be present now. Be present at this moment. So you can probably tell I'm not from around here. That's right, I'm from Brooklyn. Yeah, Brooklyn, Texas. Anyway, I spent 25 years in Orange County, but you wouldn't know it to hear me talk, right? It's because I was born, bred, and buttered in the Deep South, mostly buttered. And so as a result of that, I talk like the hick that I am. And even when we lived in Orange County, I never really got over sounding like a hick. That's why we finally went back so that we could be honest about the way Debbie and I sound. And if you think my accent is bad, you should hear my wife. And it's funny because we now live in, well, actually we live in the country from a town called Crawford, Texas, population 779. We moved there from Orange County, California, from a postage stamp lot that is, according to the Orange County tax assessor, 0.13 of an acre to 21.5 acres, and I see stars every night when I go out and look up, if I don't mind the 109 degrees that it is at the moment anyway. So I say all of that because one of the things I have noticed over my life is that wherever I am, I'm there. And it doesn't matter where I go, I don't want to be by myself very long. Even the people who say they want to be alone, most of them don't. I wonder if sometimes we say we want to be alone as a self-protective measure because nobody is calling. And it makes me feel better if I can acknowledge that. And that's better than me saying I'm pretty alone. And one of the great gifts we give is the gift of presence. How many of you are part of Temple Bethel? You see your hands? Temple Bethel? Okay. So the rest of you aren't. That's great. Okay. So I'm going to use an illustration from Judaism, okay? I don't know if you've noticed or not, but in the history of the Creator's dealings with the Jewish people, he rarely sent an envoy. When Abram, before his name changed, was out there in the desert, how was he spoken to? Do you remember? It was a kind of a bush. Remember that story? What was going on with the bush? It was burning. It was on fire. Yeah? And it wasn't an angel or a messenger who spoke from the bush. Folks, I think that speaks volumes to what we as faith communities are called to do, is to be present. There is no substitute for being present. Social media is wonderful and Zoom is great, but neither one are the same as feeling the beating of another heart in the same room that I'm in. Ever. It's never the same. Dr. Engelman and I were talking about this just a while ago. We both love telemedicine for what it can do, but there's some things you can't do with telemedicine. Like, for example, when I tell, I'm the brand new recipient, I'm the recipient of a brand new shiny, I think it's shiny, titanium, ceramic, and nylon hip joint. 9 weeks ago today it was installed. That's why I can stand again and do high kicks and all kinds of things I haven't been able to do in years, right? In fact, it's such a great surgery, I think you should have a hip replacement even if you don't need one, because it's a great experience overall. But here's the funny thing. If I needed to talk to my surgeon about swelling that was not subsiding, guess what? The very best Zoom link or Microsoft Teams link in the world would not help him to feel the edema in my leg, right? Being present. Some of us, a few of us in the room are old enough to remember back when AT&T was called Ma Bell, all right? Do you remember, now this was back when you paid for long distance calls because you also dialed your telephone, all right? So I know that lets out a handful of you, but you paid for long distance, and Ma Bell told us what about long distance? It was the next best thing to being there. You say, okay, now I know who the old people are in the room. Yeah, right? That's what Ma Bell told us, was that. But guess what? If you ever talk to somebody in New York from California, was it even close to being there? No, not even close. It might have been the next best thing, but the next best thing was a far cry away. So it is, right? So it is. I don't meet very many people anymore who married right before World War II, and then their husband left and went to war for 6 months or a year and a half, and all they could exchange was an occasional letter. I don't meet many people who experience that anymore, but I guarantee you for them, presence meant something. And I think it does for all of us when we are deeply hurting, to have that presence of somebody. You see, the good news is you don't have to have something to say when you are present. My friend Jim Cock, who for many years was the director of pastoral care at the Crystal Cathedral, that was the Robert Schuller empire up there in Garden Grove, and Jim was there for many, many years as I think they called him pastor of pastoral care, pastor of congregational care, or something or another. Jim wrote a book, I guess 35 years ago now probably, entitled 90% of Caring is Just Showing Up. And so it is, the gift of presence. being present. Just being present. Not with something to say. Now, I'll offer some things to say and not say in a moment, but the first thing is to show up. I'm astounded at how often I have talked with people for whom no one has even shown up. They would have long since forgotten and forgiven the stupid things their friends had said. The problem is they never even got that chance because their friends didn't show up. They didn't come. They were never present. Present. Here's the second one, is ask open-ended questions. So you want to know what to say? Well, here's my secret. Don't make a statement, ask a question. That takes all of the burden off of you and kicks it right over onto the person who's hurting. Now, that's the wrong thing to do most of the time, but when it comes to storytelling, it's exactly the right thing to do. It's to punt the focus off of me and onto the person to whom I'm providing care. Open-ended questions are the ones that start with who and what and when and where and how, because what they do is they help us to learn where the pain points are. See, I don't really know. I can't always know. I frequently don't know exactly where people hurt emotionally or spiritually or socially. I simply don't have a framework for that, but what I can do is I can ask them to tell me where it hurts. Isn't that what good doctoring does? You would think that your internist was an absolute jerk, kook, or quack if you went in to see her or him and you said, you know, doctor, I'm here because I have a pain. And he said, oh, I know exactly what to do. Here's a prescription. Right? I mean, you'd be finding another doctor, would you not? Because I'm pretty sure the pain in your knee is not the same as the pain in your head. And neither one is the same as a pain in your chest. And so what we want to do is ask enough questions that we learn where the pain points are for this person's emotional pain. So I like to ask questions like, tell me, what's been the hardest part of this experience for you so far? I'll find out pretty fast where the pain points are when I ask, what's been really difficult for you about this? I know a lot of things have been hard, but what's been the hardest? Of all the things that surely must scare the EBGBs out of you right now, what do you suppose scares you the most? What I'm doing here is I'm narrowing the focus on where the pain issues are so that I can be present. I can probably suggest resources, but even if I can't, I've just provided my friend or my fellow congregant or whomever an opportunity to tell their story and to say, this is where I hurt, this is what I need, these are the things I don't need. What happens instead is we usually say this glib thing. Instead of asking a question, this is what we say. I bet you can finish the sentence. Let me know if there is anything. Isn't that amazing? We all know that. It's the absolute least helpful thing anybody says. So I was taking care of a family up in Long Beach. This is almost 30 years ago because I have old stories. Husband had died in the OR at Long Beach Community Hospital undergoing open heart surgery to prevent a heart attack. All right, so there's everything wrong with this story for this family to start with. They are sitting in their living room. He's died about 3 o'clock on Friday. Well, they had multiple attempts to resuscitate him and taken him back to the OR, but he basically, he was dead by 3 o'clock Friday afternoon. We're sitting in their living room in Lakewood, California on Saturday morning, and the phone rings. It is the church hostess, whatever in the world that is, from the congregation where this family is a member. And I just happened to be close to the phone, so I answered the phone on behalf of the family. And I said, hello, this is the so-and-so's residence, and said who I was. And She said, "Hello." This is almost a direct quote. It's emblazoned into my memory. She said, "I am the church hostess from," and she named the congregation, which to not throw them under the bus, I won't, but it's the First Southern Baptist Church of Long Beach. And anyway, she said, "I'm the church hostess from," and she named their congregation, and she said, "I've heard there's a lot of food already showing up over there, but if you need any more, just give me a call." Now, can you imagine along about Sunday afternoon, the widow opening her refrigerator and saying, "We seem to be running low on potato salad. I believe I'll call and see if they could bring some right over," right? I don't think so. But that's exactly what I mean. And here's what I think we do when we offer that kind of help. When we say, "Let me know if there's anything I can do to help," what we are really doing is we are saying, I don't want to take the time to get to know what your need is. And I can feel better about myself and check my box that I have cared if I will make an offer that you likely can't or won't take me up on anyway. I feel better. You'll probably not, but that's not a real important thing for me right now. And we'll all be happy together in the morning. Is there anything, or let me know if there's anything I can do to help, is just about the same level of connection as when you see someone when you're walking into pavilions and they're walking out, and you exchange the pleasantry of, "Oh, hello, how are you today?" It's about the same thing, right? Now, if you think that, "Oh, hello, how are you today," is a good thing to do, let me give you a little game to play. Next time you're walking into Pavilions or Ralph's or wherever you do your shopping, the next time somebody says, "Oh, hello, how are you today?" this is what you do. You say, "Oh, I've had a horrible day. I got up this morning and my back was hurting and my knees. Oh, do you have arthritis in your knees? It's horrible to have arthritis in your knees. And my children, they're out of control. I just don't even know what I'm going to do. And the public school system. And what are we going to do about the White House or the State House or whichever house you want to pick on today?" Right? And just start into your litany. What do you think this person, this poor, unsuspecting individual whom you have never met and doesn't know you from Adam, what do you suspect she or he is going to do? They are going to get out of this conversation as quickly as possible, because the obligatory answer to "how are you today" is what? Fine, thank you. How are you? Fine, thank you. We're both off the hook. But a caring conversation has not occurred. But we've deluded ourselves into thinking. Just like my 31-year-old daughter deludes herself into thinking she actually has 997 friends, because that's how many people she's connected to on Facebook. Now, fortunately, Carolyn knows better, but you see what I mean? We delude ourselves into thinking we're making connections, but we're not making connections at all, because we're not asking the questions that help us learn what support is already there. A couple of questions will tell me I'm inundated right now. I've got more food here than I know what to do with. We're at the hospital 24/7. We can't eat all the food that's being delivered to the house. Ask that it come next week. Anything at all helps me to know. When I ask questions, it helps me to know what are the unmet needs. And it also helps me to know what kind of resources are already present for this person and this family. What's already being done? What are the things that maybe are unmet? What are the things that are not yet being covered? All of those things. And again, the questions I ask tend to start with who, what, when, where, and how. I don't ask why questions. Some of you have heard me say this before. The reason I don't is because it takes me back to when I was 5 and broke my mother's lamp, and she wanted to know why I was bouncing the ball in the house, and I'm still traumatized from it. So And my mother's been dead for, 8 years. So, and I'm still dealing with it, right? So, okay, you get my picture, right? So I don't ask why questions. I do think they tend to raise defenses. But the other questions don't. Who and what and how. How did the two of you meet? What was it like to date back then? Where were your favorite places to go? What have been your absolute best times of your life? What have been the hardest times? When have you seen your community show up for you in a really dramatic way? Those kinds of questions will help us see sort of where the pain points are and what the unmet needs are.
So tell us again. I'm hearing you say, when you call somebody, you say be present. One of the things I'm concerned about is some people don't want to see you when they're struggling. Yeah, right. And so you make that telephone call, that caring, concerned telephone call. And I think I'm hearing you say, because that's what I say, what can I do for you? Yeah. And of course they say, well, nothing. Yeah. And of course I know I haven't done anything for them. But you're saying maybe I could say, tell me, what is it that's causing you the greatest pain in your life right now? Or I don't know, I'm asking.
I'm not sure that I want to ask it quite that directly as what's causing the greatest pain right now in your life, although I think there's place for that. I'm okay with that. I'd be less bothered with that than is tell me if there's call me if there's anything you want me to do, because you just rolled it back on me as the hurting person. What I want to do here is, for example, if I really don't know what to do, but I suspect there's something, this is my line. I don't know what you need, though I'm all ears if there's something you're thinking of. But what I want you to know is I'm also all eyes to find what kinds of things we can do to help. What can we do to come alongside you? I was telling the, I can never say the word, thank you, that committee a while ago at dinner. We're dealing with a family in our community right now, the small little town of Crawford, Texas, with a 10-year-old with widely metastatic abdominal cancer. And my goodness, we don't know what to do. And of course, the healthcare professional in me is beside myself because I found out on Sunday that they can't get in to see an oncologist at Cook's Children's until like sometime the end of September. So you can imagine on Friday when I'm back in my office, I'm going to be rattling cages in the healthcare system from Dallas to Houston. And maybe we'll rattle the right cage, I don't know. But my point is, I don't know what to do, but what folks in our community are saying to that mom, single mom, what we're saying to her is, we don't know what you need, but we've got our eyes open. And so last week, somebody found out, and I'm not even sure how Trey found out, but she found out her dryer wasn't working. And within 6 hours, there was a new dryer installed in her kitchen. And the only way people know that is keep their eyes open. And I think what happens sometimes is we get so enamored in taking care of our stuff and an eye on our things, we simply don't see what other people need. And so I think what I'm saying by not rolling it back on the hurting person is to say, you know what, you may have a need that I won't spot, and I'm all ears if you've got one you want to tell me. But I'm not depending on you to tell me what you need. I'm watching, and I'm paying attention. And I think the only way I can do that is if I'm present, because I'm not likely going to learn that from Facebook, right? Does that make sense? What do you think about this? I don't know, who's got the mics? Oh, this is the only mic we got? Oh, there's another one. All right.
You're going to take.
I'll take that one, you take this one. And Phil Donahue here is going to come around, and for the or Vanna White or whoever she is.
What I would do is,
If they're up here, I can handle this one.
I
Just
think-
hold it up close.
I think what I
We're
would,
speaking to the people on TV.
Oh.
Not the folks in TV land.
I think what I would do, of course, as soon as you said that, my mind went to Danny Thomas' place, the Children's Hospital in LA, you know, the wonderful Jewish hospital that started out in Duarte. I can't remember the name of it right now.
City Hall.
Yes, City of Hope, which now there's one in Orange County. That's my first instinct is who do I know there? Who can I call? How can I find out? Do some research online or talk to somebody there, and then you can say to them, I've tried to even write a note, I think is easier, and say, these are the people I've talked to. If there's any other people that you can think I need to talk to, please email me. It's easier that way.
You know, I was just thinking about this. So we have a really good friend. I have it's funny how in a very small community like Crawford, Texas, there would be so many pressing health needs right now. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but it's going on in your neighborhood too. I promise you we're not some dreaded place. Well, we probably are some dreaded place on earth, but it's 108 today. I'm pretty sure it's dreaded by most people. But anyway, that's why I'm in California, and so is Sarah, right? Yeah, let's get out of Texas. But anyway, no, seriously, I think what happens is that we just get so busy with our own stuff, we just don't take time to notice that a single mom with a child with widely metastatic cancer has a broken dryer. And I don't think it's any great secret. I mean, we realized it, somebody in our community realized it pretty fast. And let me tell you, it did not take a vote of the congregation to buy a new dryer either, right? I mean, we've got, I don't think the congregation paid for it either. I think somebody went down to Discount Appliance, bought the dryer, and had it installed. I mean, it's like there's a need, I can fill it. I'll take care of that one. And I think that's what we're talking about here is seeing a need and stepping into the need. And you know what? That mom might have said, "How dare you?" She might have. But in 39 years, I don't believe I've ever heard the words, "How dare you," from somebody who was helped. I don't think. I could have forgotten one, but nobody's told me to quit calling. Nobody said, "I really want my privacy." Oh, I read that in the newspaper periodically, respect the family's privacy, or the news media will say it. I've never had somebody say, nor have I gotten through the grapevine, that somebody wanted to be left alone. I just haven't heard it. I think instead what we hear is everybody left me alone. Nobody cared. Nobody called. Anyway, okay, somebody else.
I was just going to say that I think it's important for people to show up, be there for you, be it the caregiver or the person that's ill.
Yeah. And especially the caregiver, because everybody thinks about the person who's sick, but we often forget about the person who's taking care of the person who's sick, don't we? And that's a deeply, deeply felt emotion for those of us who've been caregivers. And yeah, I know when Debbie and I had, we lost not one but two babies before birth, before Carolyn was born 31 years ago. And I think people meant well. They wanted to help. But everyone asked, "How's Deb?" And, oh, man, I don't think anybody asked me, "And how are you with this?" I don't think a single person did. Yeah. So, okay. Anybody? Thoughts? And I'm not trying to guilt you into doing this. What I'm trying to help us do is to say, let me take a breath and look around. What are the needs around me, right in my neighborhood, right? Now, if you do not know the neighbors on both sides and across the street from you, well, there's a wake-up call right there. And I know it's Orange County, so what, and get over it, right? Before this week is over, take some cookies and blame me. Say, we brought this clown from Texas in to my congregation this week, and he challenged us to take cookies to the neighbors on both sides of us and say, hi, my name is Phyllis, and I live across the street from you. In my faith community, what we are teaching people to do, now this might or might not work for you, so I'm not superimposing it, but in my faith community, this is because we're evangelicals, so we're really pretty strange people to start with. This is what we do. We say, hi, my name is Bill, I'm your neighbor. I'm wondering if there is anything that Debbie and I in our prayer time tonight could pray for you about. Do you want to know how many people have told me get off my porch? It is Crawford, Texas. Yeah. I think, well, first of all, you have to pick them up before they can throw you off their porch because nobody's ever asked them that before. Now, if you're not going to do it, don't offer that. Take them a plate of cookies instead. Somebody else? What are you thinking? Okay, yes.
The really poignant things that I've heard you say repeatedly, but I really heard in your story about the dryer was that you make people feel seen. And, you know, in your story about the dryer, it's not just that you did something, it's that you did something so meaningful that made that individual feel seen. And just like you want to pay attention to those little details because if somebody is so sick that they can't eat, delivering a basket of food to their house is not helpful.
I'm not seeing them.
You're not seeing them, exactly.
Yeah. Remember the story of Hagar? You know, Hagar was the handmaiden of Abraham. Promised to be the father of the people. Sarah, the wife, said, I'm 90 years old. I'd like to see that one happen, right? I'd like to see you pull that rabbit out of the hat, right? And so her plan was to give to Abraham her handmaiden named Hagar, who right away got pregnant and gave birth. Remember the story now? Some of you've heard it somewhere. Sabbath school, somewhere you heard it, right? Well, pretty soon, things kind of go south in that family relationship. It sounds kind of like my family, to be honest with you. And Hagar leaves. Maybe she got thrown out. I don't exactly recall the details now. But she leaves with this little boy named Ishmael. And they're traveling in the desert. And there is this little verse, and it must be, I'm going to say it must be around Genesis chapter 22, 23, 24, somewhere in there. I don't remember. But here's a really funny thing it says. It says that Hagar put this little boy down under a tree. And she went away a distance because she said, I cannot bear to watch my baby die. And she experienced the God of the universe, Genesis says, who stepped into her world. And she named the place, and my Hebrew is very bad. But what she named the place would be translated into English. I checked this out with Kavod several years ago. Would be translated into English this phrase, the God who sees. You see, ladies and gentlemen, when the faith community steps into a person's life, it is as if the creator of the universe has stepped into their life. You think it's a little thing. It has this deep spiritual resonance with it. And that's your faith, it's not mine. Well, it is mine too, but because we share that story in common. So I'm not telling you a Christian story for those of you who are of Jewish faith. I'm telling you a Jewish story, right? That always, when the congregation steps forward, leans into the life of a person who's hurting, you have just become the hands and feet of the Creator. If that's not a pretty big a call to this kind of work, I'm not quite sure what is. So, yeah, Joni. See, Joni, I know your name, so.
I think here we're getting into a discussion of faith when I want to talk about person to person. My relationship to my God is different from my relationship to my ailing friend or to my ailing neighbor. So what I'd like to concentrate on even more with you today is how to help that person as well as I can. For example, I love what you were talking about, asking the W questions that can help me help them better. But I'd love to jump up to the next part about not talking about platitudes and telling them my story.
What would be a platitude when you hear that phrase? That's a
you
nice
hear
segue.
people
Thank you.
Oh, when you hear people say, "Oh, time heals all wounds," or
Okay, and what's
yoga
wrong
is-
with the phrase "time heals all wounds"?
You're not in the moment. You're somewhere else.
Oh, okay. What else is wrong with that phrase? Let's just pick that one apart. It's not true. Okay. What's untrue about it, Elizabeth? Oh yeah, you have to wait. You have to wait for Vanna to come.
So for me, I mean, I truly believe it's not true. Like, you cannot speak that as a truth for somebody else. You do not know that that person is going to heal from the loss of their loved one.
Yeah. Oh, there you
And
go.
You don't, and everybody grieves differently, and all of these platitudes, it's like, it rings untrue.
Okay.
And it feels like you're letting the saying person off the hook.
All right. Okay. What else is wrong with the platitude "time heals all wounds"? We're gonna dissect the heck out of this one. It doesn't seem now. Oh, it doesn't see them in the now. It doesn't see their now. Okay. Yeah. What else? What's wrong with that platitude? Okay, Dr. Raj. Yeah.
I like where this is going, okay?
Well, I'm glad somebody does.
Well, you started with awareness or presence, to be present. So I'm going to bring the word awareness. I am aware of me, of this thing within me. So I am present. You are aware of the same awareness, and we are connected from that spiritual that we spoke earlier about. So the heart that you're aware of is the same heart I'm aware of. Not bringing faith, not bringing religion, not bringing any of that, just the awareness. Now, bring time into this. The present already has become past. And the future is something to come. I don't know, but I am present. I am here. So if you're going to talk about all these words, to keep it simple. Bring awareness that each one of us are aware of ourselves. Something within us. We have always been aware of it. That's awareness. And the presence is being present in that awareness. Not with your thoughts, not with your ego, not with your mind, not anything else. Just your presence. And that in grief, or someone who needs your presence, you can just be present. Now, you can take it a little bit further If they're not saying anything to you, how are you feeling? How do you feel? And just keep quiet. Or if they say something, I didn't understand it, can you tell me a little more about that? So I am being present, but my questions are open-ended and just leaving it to them to open that space and that time. So I've taken all of this together into a few, kind of making it simple if I can. Because we are talking about time heals wounds and all those. Yeah, then you're in time and space. If you can take that away, just be present.
Somebody, let's hear another platitude. What's another thing we are commonly said?
I know how you feel.
Okay, what's wrong with I know how you feel? Well, but your child died, my child died. Don't I know how you feel? Why not? Aha, because I'm not you. Yeah, our relationship is different. It's one of the hardest things, those of us who leave bereavement support groups, one of the hardest things that we have to contend with in widows groups especially. Because what happens, it happens every week in a widows group, is a new widow comes to the group and somebody around the table, she tells her story and somebody says, honey, I know just how you feel. Now, it gets worse because once in a while somebody will say, oh, and you think the first year's bad, you wait till the second year. Now, that's really helpful, right? So what I'm saying is platitudes, okay, we've listed several platitudes, and there are a whole lot more. You're young, you can have another child. Debbie and I heard that a lot. Well, the truth is we were not young, and it was not a foregone conclusion that we could. So one of the problems with platitudes is they just flat are not true. Whoever said that. Sometimes they're just not true, and I'm speaking in a generic way about something that I really have no basis in knowledge about whatsoever. What are the other problems with platitudes like these? Sometimes they're spiritual things, you know. God won't give you anything more than you can bear. God, if I hear that one more time, I'm going to throw up. But yeah, we hear that.
I think what's wrong with it is that you're cutting the person off for being able to express themselves.
Yeah.
And if you're really with them and you ask them the question, it's not for you to understand it, it's for them to go through it and maybe discover it for themselves and share it with you.
Yeah, okay. So what else is wrong with platitudes? What's problematic for them? This side over here is very quiet. I'm going to have to put some of you on the spot, I think. But what's wrong? Okay, yes, sir.
Okay. I want to ask a question that maybe not a good answer. How did platitudes get to be platitudes? Was it because the platitude had some kind of feeling or empathy behind it? I mean, agreeing a lot with what's being said, what comes to me is that
What makes it a platitude?
yeah, is it because, let's say, I'm sorry for your loss, is that considered a platitude?
What's different between the phrase, I'm sorry for your loss, and time heals all wounds? What's different between them?
When you're saying I'm sorry for your loss, you're speaking for yourself.
Aha. So platitudes are caregiver focused rather than care recipient focused. That's one thing. What else is problematic what makes it a platitude to start with? What's a platitude really saying? See if you can read my mind here. How good a TSP? No, that's the cleaner. ESP do you have?
You're not so important. Everybody's just like you. Your
Yes.
feelings don't really count.
That's it, exactly. You're really not that special after all. I know your mother told you that. You're not that special. You're the fourth one, right? You're just not that special, right? I'm not going to ask the two of you which one mom said that to, but yeah, you're just not that special, right? Yeah, you're not that special. That's one thing that's really problematic with a platitude. It takes your specific hurt and tries to paste a generic solution on it. And it says you're really not that special. That's one of the problems with it. What else is problematic with these platitudes? What makes it a platitude? I think there's a really big thing here. Let's see if you can see it. What does a platitude do with your experience? Does it make your experience, Joni, if I use a platitude with you, does it make your experience bigger?
You don't want me to tell you how it makes me feel?
No, I do.
No.
Just keep the language
so-
clean.
Oh, I have to, okay. I don't want to be dismissed. I don't want to be reduced. I don't want to be made less important. And what I feel is genuine.
Yeah. Listen to the 3 words she just used. Dismissed, reduced, made less important. That's the problem with platitudes. A platitude always tries to minimize your experience. Every time. That's the reason you know you're about to say one if your phrase starts with the words at least. If you say, at least you have other children, at least he lived a long life, at least, you can bet a platitude is about to follow. It's a minimizing statement. It is a setup for a minimizing statement. Just check it at the door. So what I say to caregiving people all the time is just banish the words at least from your vocabulary once and for all. Just never use them. So,
Well, the bottom line is they don't care about your feelings.
yeah.
And people don't like to talk about feelings to you.
Yeah. Well, or sometimes I'd like to offer a rebuttal. I think the rebuttal to that I would offer is we're open to talking about what's in our heart if we feel like you're safe. If I feel like you are a person that is not going to shame me, is not going to make less of me, I think I'll tell you what's going on. I'm probably going to do it kind of like this. Raj said it a few minutes ago. I'm probably going to start out with a test volley. You know, I just don't know if my mother cared much for me. And see what you do with it. What does the average well-meaning friend say if I say, you know, at my mother's shiva, and I don't know that I'd say it at the shiva, would I? But I say some in the first 3 weeks or so. I say I'm just not even sure that my mother cared for me. What do most well-meaning friends say to that? Of course she did. She's exactly. Every one of those is a minimizing statement. It says your feelings are not genuine. They're not legitimate. They're not okay here. And guess what? Am I likely to try to convince you that you're wrong and I'm right? No, I give that up. My heart language stops right there. If, on the other hand, I say, I'm really not sure that my mother cared for me, and you respond with what would be a helpful way to respond? Let's hear some ideas. Okay, wow, what makes you say that? What else? Okay, what did she do to make you feel that way? Yeah, can you tell me more about that?
I'm sure you must have had good reason to say what you said.
Yeah. And I'm all ears, right? I think I want to turn it into a question. And my fear is if I just say you had a good reason and I stop there, I'm not offering them an opportunity to add more to it. And they may not, honestly. But, okay, you understand this. I don't have to belabor the point. But you see what we're doing here is we're saying instead of talking them out of a feeling, that's what we're trying to do. Why? Well, I think there are a lot of reasons. One, I'm a lot more comfortable with my feelings than I am with yours. And the reality is most of us use platitudes because it gets us out of the conversation faster. I don't have to be bothered. You won't get your sad all over me, to use Nora McInerney's phrase. If you've never seen Nora McInerney's TED Talk, where she reflects back on the death of her husband Aaron, you owe it to yourself. Nora McInerney. So just go to TED.com, type in Nora McInerney, and she'll come right up. She's got bright yellow shoes. You'll know it when you see her, right? But it's a great, because that's one of the things she says, we'll just get our sad. We're afraid we'll get our sad all over. You'll get your sad all over me. And so that's a really big part of this. It has nothing to do with the person to whom I'm providing care. It has everything to do with my self-protection.
The other thing too is if you call somebody that you know is hurting and you know that they will talk to you, you better be prepared to be on the phone for a long time and not say, well, I gotta go, because that's not right.
That's right. Don't do drive-by care. I wonder if that's why we text a lot. Gets me, I can check the care box. I showed up, I sent a text, I did the obligatory, it's kind of like saying, hello, how are you, to the person as I walk into Pavilions tonight, right? You should try this on the way home. It is the most fun, just try it. Or somebody in the aisle. And if they don't ask you first, you ask them, oh, how are you tonight? And they'll say, I'm fine, thank you. How are you? And then you start your litany. It's great fun. All right, well, anyway, where I'm going with this is simply this. We want to make sure we're not just checking the care box. Checking the care box is I'm doing that sort of minimum, that just nothing more than what's absolutely required. Okay, let me move on to the fourth one, or I'm never going to get finished by 8:30. All right, here's the fourth one. Make sure that your body expresses the same, this might be slightly different. Make sure your body expresses the same message as your mouth. Is that kind of what the outline says? Something like that, yeah. All right, so Phyllis, you've got the microphone in your hand. I'd like to demonstrate to all of you two possible ways to do this. Phyllis, you can stand there, it's okay. All right, okay. Phyllis, would you just begin telling me a story in the hearing of these people? And I'm going to respond accordingly. Any story, anything you want, something that's important to you. It could be your job, it could be Steve, if he's important. It could be whatever you'd like,
Steve, I'll bring up Steve. He's so well known.
Yeah.
Recently, he had some. Recently, my husband was ill unexpectedly, was hospitalized twice in a 3-week period, and it was quite scary. What are you doing?
Thank you. Okay, now I'm overblowing that a little bit, right? Now, okay.
I would ask that question, by the way.
Notice the difference if we do it this way. So start again, would you?
Steve was hospitalized twice in a 3-week period. Very scary. Not sure what we were dealing with. Thankfully, he's better now.
Okay, which of my expressions was a little more comforting to you?
Neither.
Either one. Thank you for your candor.
The second one would be a little more caring because you were leaning in.
Okay. What do you mean when you say I was leaning in?
You moved your body in. Your eyes were on me,
Not my phone.
not your phone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have to talk to my daughter about this all the time. Put the phone down, right? Yeah. Put it down, right? Leave it in the car or your pocket or anywhere, just not in a caring conversation, right? Yeah. Huh? No. That's why I keep having to tell her, Raj, is she won't listen. No, seriously, though, it's very different when we lean in, our body says, I'm with you, I'm present. There's some maybe verbal, now don't paste that on. Oh, wow, yeah, oh, dear. Oh, you don't have to do all that. But I've noticed something. If I really don't care, and there are days, it shows. Because the best remedy to having a caring conversation is actually caring. It's pretty hard to pretend that I don't when I don't. So if you're not in that space, don't pretend like you are. Wait till you are kind of ready to step into that. A lot of us, when we've been taking care of our own needs or someone, it's pretty hard to find the energy to care for other people. So isn't it? Yeah. Now, I mean, I recovered from this brand new shiny titanium hip that I have very quickly. You know, it's a slam dunk surgery these days. But I'll be honest with you, as they were wheeling me out of the hospital, I didn't stop at every bed and say, "Oh, how's this going for you today?" Right? Okay, I was not in my counselor mood, which I probably would have been under other circumstances, right? Because I was pretty wiped out myself. So don't pretend, but I've found that if we really do care, it's really easy to lean in. And it's really easy to say, I'm with you. Now, honestly, that's easier for me as I've gotten older because I have to lean in to hear better. And I will sometimes turn my head slightly, which really says I'm listening, right? I want to make sure I don't miss a word in this.
So one of the problems is that some of us have faces that show everything. And so it's really hard when you're the caregiver and you've been giving the care and the patient's trying to do the best they can, and you don't want to look like you're really upset because they've thrown their phone for the 14th time onto the floor or they can't find something. And it's not as easy as it sounds to look cheerful and make yourself feel cheerful and remind yourself that you're not there for yourself, you're there for them, because it takes the hell out of you.
Yeah. Is that when I need a break, maybe?
Yep.
Yeah.
And there's not always a break.
Oh, certainly not. Yeah. And, you know, I think, guess what? Most people can overlook that. But I do not want to use the exception to discount the rule here. Okay? That's an exception for you, I bet you, Joni, isn't it? I mean, that's not in every moment when I'm caring for somebody that I'm frustrated the hell out of it, or whatever, however you said that, right? That's not every moment. Yeah, sure. Yeah. So in those first 7, yeah. So let's not let that awful experience negate what the wonderful work you have done with this particular individual. Do you understand what I'm suggesting here?
I'm there for that person, and it doesn't matter if I'm picking up the blasted phone again.
Yeah. No, I'm fair. That's fair. Yeah. I don't think that we are always caring. Some of us are never caring. And we probably ought not be doing this work. Yeah.
Bill.
Yes, sir.
So I think with the text and, you know, now more of the concerns and the conversations are via text. And we need to learn to lean in. If you are the one who are now sending the message of hope and caring, or the other side. I got a lot recently towards me from family and friends, so many of them. And it's almost like they're leaning in and asking me how I am. And I have to treat it with the same compassion, not only with the timing of my reply, but also the compassion that I feel it. Again, the awareness and the feeling. This is a different set of rules we are all living by. Not many people are talking to each other. Sometimes the conversations are long and we love it, but sometimes it's, thank you, Phyllis. Sometimes it's just these text messages. I just got one from my son in Arizona while I was with you. I mean, listening to you, and I responded with love and affection, because this is the time when he wants to find out about something. So I just wanted to bring that awareness to all of us and say, this is still the connection.
Yeah. Well, and I think to that point, a lot of times we assume that an electronic communication has got to be answered in this second. And, I've discovered that I'm pretty important, but I'm not so important that the world falls apart if I don't respond. And things don't quit operating. Because I teach, my rule is when I walk into the classroom at 8 a.m. until I walk out of the classroom after the end of my last class, typically at 12:20, I do not look at my phone. My assistant knows if there is an emergency, she's got to leave her office and come to my whichever classroom I happen to be in at that hour. Even when I'm moving from room to room at class, part of that is because I have learned, this is for me, I'm not saying you got to do this, I'm saying I have learned that I cannot constantly go back and forth from one world to the other. And the electronic world is highly, highly addictive. And if I look at one email, I'll look at 7. And then I will not be in the space to be present with my students. And I'm wondering what it communicates to those 19 and 20 and 21-year-olds when they walk into my classroom and I'm standing up at the lectern looking at my phone. I'll tell you what it communicates to them. It says whatever is going on his phone is more important than me right now. And I think we have given ourselves way too much pass on electronic communication. And I think it is okay. And folks, I'm gonna throw we oldies under the bus. We are a whole lot worse about it than the young people are. When I walk into restaurants, I see a whole lot more 70-year-olds with their faces stuck in a phone than I ever see 20-year-olds. Because they don't do that anymore. They're Instagramming or I don't know, whatever they're doing. But it's very quick for them. They're TikToking or dick-docking or I don't know, whatever the heck they are. So you see what I'm saying? And so what we cannot be present with people when we are constantly moving from this world to another. Just bouncing around like a ping pong pinball. I don't know what. Yeah, Dr. Engelman, what are you thinking here?
Just refer back to something that really struck me powerfully in our phone conversation when you were healing and I was calling to visit with you about your healing process, and you said something that was so impactful about by your letting me in and be there to be giving, that you are giving the gift. You are giving a gift rather than me being the one who's doing the giving, that you also are giving the gift and being able to be open to what's being given to you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and those of us who are consummate caregivers have a really hard time receiving, don't we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how that sometimes people don't want to receive because of fear of their dependency needs or whatever, and so there's an opening that takes place on the receiver's part as well as giving a gift for someone to send to them.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think I know the story that might have elicited that. Let me see if this is it. So in the 2.5 weeks maybe after I had the hip replacement, I knew a couple of things going into that. One of the things was our home has no walk-in showers. We all have only tub showers, so you have to step over the tub. That's not a safe thing for somebody with a brand new shiny hip. I don't care if it's titanium or not. All right, that's not a smart idea. And I knew that. The second thing I knew was my wife, when we married, was 5'2", but we all shrink over time. And Debbie and I have been married 35 years, and I made a shade cover for her garden the other day, and it's 5 feet tall, and she doesn't duck under it. So she's something under 5 now, and I'm not. And she weighs a lot less than I do. I'm not telling you what either of us do, but you just take my word for it. And I knew that if she helped me get in and out of the shower and I lost my balance, there were two of us who were going to be badly hurt. So I made the decision pretty early, about a month before my surgery. It might not be all that dignified, but I'm going to find a group of guys who will come in and help me get in and out of the shower every evening. And so I began talking to some of the guys in our community and said, you know, would you help me with this? And not a one said, oh, no, I don't do that. Everyone's, absolutely. Yeah, when do you need me? Send me a text. Give me a call. I'm there. And every one of them does. I'm going to tell you there are more men in Crawford, Texas seen my junk now than anybody around. There's nothing dignified about that. But I learned something in the process of that. Because the first one who came, his name is Jim. And I had not put all this story together, but I learned something about Jim. Because what else do you do when you're showering and he's standing there? Well, you talk, right? I mean, what else, right? And so I learned from him that first or second night what a gift it was for me to let Jim do that. You want to know why? Because almost 30 years ago, Jim took care of his 16-year-old boy who was dying of leukemia. And people in our community came to his aid as a single dad doing that work. And he said to me, for the first time, now I happen to know it was not the first time, but he said, for the first time since Jamie died, you have let me pay it back. Isn't that interesting? I thought he was helping me. We took him and he and his wife to dinner the other night just to say thank you for everything they did. That's kind of what we have been doing in these weeks since. And he said, oh my goodness. He said, you gave me a gift a lot bigger than I gave you. I think we forget that. And I think in our, I'm going to take care of this on my own nonsense, we forget that those who help also receive a gift. And which leads me to this fifth one, and that's to look for a practical action to take and then do it. Ken Judy. Finally, the seventh time, count them, the seventh morning in a row that he called Debbie and said, I'm going into H-E-B. Do you need anything? H-E-B is the grocery store that's 17 miles away because when you live in Crawford, Texas, you have to go away to shop. And he said, I'm going to Waco. I'm going to H-E-B. I don't know why the man needed to go to H-E-B every day. I'm thinking he's retired. He ain't got nothing else to do, probably. I don't know. But, well, that and his wife was out of town. The poor guy's probably, I don't know what he's doing. But morning after morning after morning, he called Deb about 8:15, 8:30. I'm going to H-E-B. You need anything? Finally, about morning 6, she said, I cannot tell Ken no again when he calls this morning. I've got to think of something that he can pick up for us. And so, Ken, would you get us some cottage cheese and some, I don't know, lettuce? I don't know what she told him, but something we probably didn't need, but he got it, right? But what Ken Judy knew was that it was better to look for a practical action and offer to do it than it was to say, let me know if there's anything I can do. Look for something practical. You may miss. We often do. A lot of times I'll say, do you need X? And they'll say, well, not really, but I could use this. Or, you know, this would really help me. What happens, do you know how a tuning fork works? It kind of vibrates. That's what we're doing. We're vibrating a tuning fork to say, okay, we're on the same wavelength. And I might miss the exact thing you need, but I just communicated very loudly that I will help. And you are much more inclined to say, okay. Well, I don't really need anything, but would you get me some cottage cheese? Okay. We're much more inclined to do that. Look for practical things and then do it. I like the phrase, I'm not sure what you need. This is a possibility. I'm happy to do this. Think of the things that everybody needs, okay? I bet you everybody needs help setting up for a Shiva, or else it falls on the family. And you may have a great way of taking care of that, but if not, then step into it and see. Look for practical ways to help and then do it. Here's the sixth one, is to lean on the value of the second touch. That's a phrase I learned from my wife, Debbie. She said, everybody calls the first time, but not many people keep calling.
He's pointing at me for a reason.
Not once, not twice, not even 6 times. In that first couple of weeks, hardly a day went by that I didn't have a phone call, a text, or both saying, how you doing this morning? That is the second, the third, and the fifth touch. And folks, I have said this, I say it in Crawford, Texas, and I say it in whatever town, or what are we in here?
Aliso Viejo.
Aliso Viejo. Temple Bethel is a far better pastoral care community to the Hoys than the First Baptist Church of Crawford ever thought of being. You guys have cared for us. In that awful wreck 6 years ago, the cards and the phone calls and the reaching out, far beyond anything we experienced from the people who knew us and cared for us the most or the best, or were supposed to at least. And what I'm suggesting is you already have this in your DNA. You might not know it, but you do. It is woven into the fabric, the culture of who this place is, that you care for people through the second touch, not just the first time, but the second and the third and the fourth. Everybody checks the box, but I don't know that you really care until you ask the second question. How are you today? I'm fine, thank you. No, how are you really? Okay, that's the second touch. What's been the hardest part of this for you? Not knowing what the future holds. Oh, I'm glad. And move on to how the fish are biting over at Lake Paris or whatever your hobby happens to be. Okay. And the last one is to practice good self-care. Because, you know, we've been talking a lot about taking care of other people, but I learned a long time ago that I cannot give what I do not have. I've got to take care of me. That means sometimes I need to say, I cannot pick this phone up one more time. That means sometimes, and I don't mean just picking it up off the floor, it means I cannot answer it one more time, right? Sometimes it means I have to say enough, draw the line, can't do any more on this. Sometimes it means I need to call in reinforcements. I need the other team members. I need other people in the congregation. I need other people in my community. I cannot do this alone. What we are learning with this young family in our community is that this is not going to be a sprint. This is going to be a marathon. And the needs are not going to be simple and quick. And one person is not able to handle that. And we have a couple of people with Messiah complexes in our community, just like every community does. And there's one woman that is going to flame out really fast because this family is needing a whole lot more than one person can offer. And the wonderful thing is one person doesn't have to. Because that's why we're in communities to start with. It's because we have these great gifts to share. And there's something spectacular that happens when we share them as a community. Our gifts, when given one at a time, equal 1 + 1 + 1, but when given collaboratively, they somehow multiply or they grow exponentially somehow. I don't know how the magic works. I just know that it does. And something amazing begins to happen. It happens in the lives of the people for whom we care, and it happens in our lives too. And so making sure that you are always making time for yourself. Shame on you if you are so busy caring for others that you neglect your own nutrition and your own exercise. Knock it off already. There are no awards given for that kind of behavior, okay? You don't get any extra brownie points for it. Speaking of brownies, we've got some to eat. But you don't get any extra points for them, right? Not a bit, no. Take care of yourself. Make sure that one of the things that I have found very helpful for me is to check. I have 7 F's. I think there's 7. You want to know what they are? My faith. Am I making time every week? I don't have to do it every day, but am I making time every week to exercise the things that are important in my faith? For me, that means attending worship. For you, that may mean a daily quiet time. I don't know what it means, whatever it means, all right? My faith, my family. I want to be really careful that I'm not so busy taking care of other people that my wife, which is my family now, our kids are grown and gone, but that she does not know that she still is my number one. Okay, I do not want to become that busy. I do not want to become, and so, she has permission to say, you are traveling too much. You are spending too much time at Baylor. Please do not say yes to another book project. Or whatever she wants to, she has permission to do that. And I need to listen, and I have men in my life who will ask me, are you listening to Debbie about those things? Because she's a lot smarter than you are. And I'm like most men in our culture, I'm married up. All right. Here's the third one. Faith, family. How about your fitness? What are you doing about your fitness, your nutrition, your exercise, and those kinds of things? Okay. For a long time, I wasn't physically able to do much, and I've ramped up the activity a little bit, and I hope that over the next year or so, that most of the 35 pounds that I've picked up in the last 5 years will sort of begin to dissipate. That's what I'm hoping for. I'm working to that end. I'm trying to eat a little more responsibly, though it was really hard tonight, but I'm trying to, all right? So watching for that, paying attention to that every week. What are you doing in your nutrition, your exercise, your fitness? How about your friends? You making time for them? I don't mean an occasional text. I don't mean an occasional, that's a drive-by relationship. Shooting them a text and checking the box. I'm talking about taking 15 minutes to spend on the phone or in person over a cup of coffee and say, so how is it in your heart? How is it in your soul? Whatever word works for you. How are things for you on the inside? How are things going in your life at home? What's happening at work right now? What's the challenge, the biggest challenge you're facing right now? Am I really leaning into a person? I don't have the energy to do that with 100 people, but I have the energy to do that with the 4 or 5 in my life who are my closest friends. The people I would call at 2 a.m. anyway. Don't I owe them that much? Yeah. So, how about my faculties? My faculties, my thinking. Am I learning new things? Some people I meet in their 40s or 50s are proud to say they've not read a book since college. Don't make that you, right? That's probably not here, but it's not in Crawford either, but it is some places. So, yeah, are we learning? Are we discovering new things? And I don't mean just the echo chamber of listening to your favorite, whatever the political leaning of the news outlet that you listen to. I don't know how people have Fox or CNN on all day. I would lose my ever-loving mind. That is not helping you grow intellectually. I'm just telling you. And I don't care which of them you got on. Then none of them going to do it. Yeah. But reading and learning and discovering and listening for voices that are different than the echo chamber in your own head, right? And yeah, TED Talks are great. It's 15 minutes. I mean, anybody can spend 15 minutes, right? Yeah, so I think I've listed about 5 of them. How about your finances? What are you doing with the money that you have available to you? Are you spending it all on yourself? Are you giving some away? Investing for the future? What's going on in your finances? That's a very important self-care thing. And then how about your field? The field of endeavor, the place where you spend your time. If you are in administration, are you reading and learning, going to workshops and learning how to do a better job of vision casting or managing than you did last year? Are you learning how to take care of patients better today than you did a month ago? Or am I kind of resting on my laurels of what I learned before? And all of those things together will help us give so that we're never giving from an empty cup. Thank you.
Well, I just want to thank everybody and thank Dr. Bill Hoy for an enlightening hour and a half. It was, we have 7 things to think about and many more things than 7 things. But anyways, again, and thank you all for coming. And again, thank you. There's some desserts. There's some treats, water, coffee, lemonade, brownies. We're not thinking about our self-care in that respect today. But anyways, thank you again to O'Connor and Vitas and Temple Bethel and Phyllis for spearheading this committee for years and years to come, and it's been such an important part of our community, and we appreciate everything that you do too. Thank you.
That's the same thing as AA, because when an AA person helps someone in Al-Anon or something, it helps them. Yeah. That's the same thing.
Good.
Nice to see you.
For being here tonight, sir.
Thank you. Let me give you my card.
Excellent. Thank you. All right.
O'Connor.
Probably the O'Connors take care of a lot of folks in your
for my
community,
wife.
don't they?
20 years ago when she passed.
Okay.
And then my new wife's mother, they took care of her.
Wow.
And they took care of my new wife's former husband. They took care of him. And so I still want to know, what's a way that you say what's hurting you?
Tom or Thomas?
Yeah, Tom. My kids call me, you're awesome.
Well, okay, so your awesomeness, what I would say to
Just call me
that,
Tom.
what I would say to that is, I want to be present for you. Tell me what's going on that I can help with.
Okay.
Just something simple like that.
See,
Or-
I often ask them, can I do some shopping for you?
There you go. Sure. Give them a specific
Yeah,
example.
what about mowing your lawn?
There you go. Perfect.
We're going out for dinner, and what can I bring you for dinner?
Yeah.
So,
Or would you like to go with us?
well, yeah, and most of the time,
I'm sure.
just supplemental. But,
Yeah.
I'm just saying, you got to be specific. And one of the things I also say is, and maybe this is wrong, and I want your opinion, because maybe I'm saying the wrong thing. So just, most of these people don't. And say, I think I know what you're doing, and I don't mind telling you who it is, and I want you to know I love you.
I think that's okay. Here's what I fear happens. Is in that comment, I think what a person might do So what happens is I assume because the relationship is different, I've been that my loss and your loss might be similar and you might be very distinct. Here's what I say instead. Here's what I use instead. I say, I don't know what you're going through, but I'm here for you and I'm gonna stay here. That's what I do. And if you want to hear how I managed it, I'm happy to share my thoughts, but my experience is not yours, which is funny because that's Now they've given you information. Very good. So you got to the same place, you just got there.
I'm going, no, you shake his hand first, I'm so sorry, you shake his hand first, I'm so sorry. I did not mean that. I have been here all day, I'm running home. You're like the most awesome.
Oh my gosh, well, you're easily impressed is what I would say, so.
I will see you next week. Well, I'm working from home tomorrow.
She's taking a note.
I have this whole, no joke, my neuroticism, I've got this whole section devoted to, literally, devoted to inspiration. No joke, look, that is where I wrote, this is where my inspired, I just got a new notebook, this is my inspiration. That is where I wrote. You're the third thing I've written, so.